Welcome, welcome to Polish the Mirror podcast. We're on episode number 4. I have to go over here to Instagram and connect it. So give me just 1 second. This always is kind of a little labor of love here. There we go. We're connected now. Okay, so then I have to start over because of the audio that I'm using for Spotify and Apple. Excuse me. So here we go again. Welcome, welcome to Polish the Mirror podcast. We're on episode 4 already. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. If you have not caught any of these before, I'm your host, Amy Thurman. I have lived the past 10 years with a broken neck, and I literally fought my way back from unaliving myself to now I get to use my story to help other people. And so that's the purpose of this podcast, is to allow people to share the hope that they have gained in the midst of adversity. So I'm excited for you to meet my guest today and for me to chat with her. If you're listening on the podcast platforms and you feel that this is worthy of a 5-star review, please do that. Please leave us a 5-star review and share it so that these stories can reach more people with these messages of hope and resilience. That's the purpose, is to reach more people in a way that can be helpful. So, all right, let's get into this. I want to introduce you to Elizabeth Kipp. Elizabeth, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Amy. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, this is so good. Oh my gosh, if you read the intro, Elizabeth has been through some stuff. Like you have dealt with some stuff. And we were chatting a little bit beforehand that she and I have a lot in common. Like we have been through some stuff. I have too. And so I'm eager to hear what you have to share with us today, Elizabeth, about the hope that you gain in the midst of the adversity. Excuse me, you have been through so many adversities. Feel free to share whichever one, however you want to share it, and however much or little that you want to share. So I would love to hear what you have to share with us today, Elizabeth.
Well, thank you so much, Amy. I think we both have spinal issues in common, so I think I'll start with there.
Okay.
When I was 14, I was on a horse and got flipped. I was on a green filly, and she bucked kind of funny, and I unseated me. And I went flying and I landed on a rock, and it broke my 5th lumbar front to back. It split in
Oh my
two front to
gosh.
back. But what was interesting
Wow.
was I was able to get up from that accident, and yeah, it hurt, but I had such a history of pushing through, like no pain, no gain was kind of how I was raised.
Yes.
That I figured if I can get up and walk away, then I'm good. Right.
Right.
And it hurt. It really hurt for a couple of weeks. And then 7 years later, I really had difficulty walking upstairs. And I decided to go see a doctor, and I saw a chiropractor. He took an x-ray. He said, "Oh, you have an old injury here." I'm like, "Oh, I know when that happened." And then all the other back doctors, spine doctors I saw at the time wanted to do surgery, and I was very leery of that. So the chiropractors actually kept me going for another 7 years. And
They're
then
amazing. I have amazing chiropractors too.
it is astonishing,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So I'm so grateful. And anyway, at the end of, it'd be a total of 14 years after that accident, my chiropractor said to me one day, "Sometimes our patients need surgery, and you're one of them." So at that point, the bone didn't just break in two; it slipped forward. So I had the front part of that bone, that 5th lumbar, slipped forward, and at that point it was 25% slipped, and it's pulling the leg nerves with it. So it's causing some pressure. They took the back part. I had a surgery. They took for a fusion. They took the back part out, and then they called a laminectomy, and they tried to do a fusion on that front part of the bone, and it really didn't work. So a year later, I had another surgery, and they put in these Lukey rods, which I don't think they use those anymore. And that didn't really work, and so a lot of pain. And so a couple more years later, I went to Toronto General under the auspices of Dr. John Kostwick, who I don't know if he's still working, but this is a while back. He was really the only doctor in the world at that point that could stabilize my spine with the surgery
Wow.
that he did. He kind of built a cage around it. And I had to
Ah,
take out the Lukey rods and then put in this cage. They built this cage all the way around, and it's stable now. But by the time I got to John Kostwick, it was 80% slipped.
hmm.
And there
Wow.
was a lot of medication on board, starting a
Yes.
little before that first surgery. They gave me opiates and benzodiazepines, which is an anti-anxiety medicine, because
Right.
my reaction to the pain was just at that point was just I was just so activated. I was so stressed out from it, and so that began a long journey through 31 years on opiates and benzodiazepines.
Wow.
And in the 80s, after that, in the 80s, so I had that surgery in 80, I think it was 86, the third surgery. Then I had a corrective surgery after that, that happened because of that surgery. So it was a lot.
Right.
In the 80s, I spent, I think it was 6 years in bed.
Oh my
And
gosh.
when I got up, just on bed rest, and when I got up, they were concerned that was going to be unstable. So they wanted me to be nearby. So I did a lot of hospital volunteer work.
Okay, I got a timeout here. You spent 6 years in bed?
Yeah. Bed rest.
Oh
Yeah.
my word. Like I mean, I had to lay flat,
I
for
know.
23 hours a day for almost a year, but I cannot imagine 6 years. Oh my word.
Well, I read a lot of history. I had a science background, and I was well studied in biology and plants and animals and things like that, ecosystems. So I took the opportunity to study history. So when I wasn't doing house the kind of what work I could for the family, which would have been like paying the bills and things like that. I read a lot of history, so it was a way for me to keep myself busy.
Yes, isn't that interesting? Because I learned so much during that time too. It's like you have to almost remove yourself from society or from life and just take that and just we used it for good. There was a point in my journey that it wasn't used for good, but once I reached that point, oh my gosh, it has changed the trajectory of my life, literally.
Mm,
Just that.
I
Yeah.
can
So,
imagine.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the doctors told me um, back in right after my second surgery, they said, "Well, you're going to be in level 7 out of 10 pain 24/7 for the rest of your life."
Mm,
And that was a hit. That really, that was a, I was just like,
right.
but I had the science background, and there was a part of me that knew something was wrong with that statement,
Yes.
but
Yes.
I
Oh,
didn't,
I
I,
can't emphasize that enough because I
yeah,
had that feeling too. Like I knew something was wrong. They were missing something. Okay, go ahead.
yeah. And I cried for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I had a fairly new marriage and a little boy, and I was just like, this is not, I got to all the stages of grief
Yes.
that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross talks about, except the last one. I never
Yes.
accepted the prognosis. I never accepted it. And I realized that they were working in a limited model,
Mhm.
that they were telling me more about the limits of the model they were working with than they were telling me about the body's ability to heal.
Yes.
And I also realized that they were not including, they weren't, they were really not including the inner healer in the conversation. It was rather remote. Their view was rather remote from that.
Right.
And I was, because of my kind of programming and my education and everything like that, I was used to looking outside
Mhm.
for the answer. Oh, the doctor
Yes.
has the answer. Science has the answer. always out there.
Right.
This experience taught me that well, I knew I'd have to go outside the scientific method model. I knew I was going to have to go outside that. And that got me thinking about the kind of all that is that we live in, of course, which I'm a part of.
Right.
That infinite intelligence that weaves through the fabric of all of it, weaves through the fabric of all of me.
Yes.
And I knew that somehow I was going to have to tap that, or do what I could to access that, or turn into that, or unblock myself from it, or somehow unleash the healing power and remove the grip that the chronic pain had on me, because the doctors just didn't have that perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I'm coming from with my Polish the Mirror, that every answer we seek can be found within. Polish the mirror, look deep into our souls, and it's there. And that's exactly what you're talking about. I love this so much. I keep interrupting you because I'm like, I resonate with this so deeply. Yes. All right. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So that was really what kept me going, because I kept kind of searching for kind of practical solutions to how do I get off these medicines, and there's got to be something more. And I worked with, Reiki practitioners and massage therapists. I had a yoga practice. I did meditation. I had, there's lots of modalities that I used, but it wasn't until I finally found a doctor who understood the nature of chronic pain. And he was Western and Eastern trained. So he had this holistic, integrated view. And his name was Dr. Peter Prescott. And he left us this book. He passed away in 2016, but he left us this book, Conquer Chronic Pain, An Innovative Mind-Body Approach, which is, he talks about, it's his research and also exercises in the back. He really, I went through his program and did those exercises. So this was part of it. And then his program was amazing. I remember when I first met him, he didn't want to know anything about, he didn't want to see my records. He didn't want to see my x-rays. He's like, I don't need any of that. I want to know who you are. And I thought, who are you and where have you been all my life?
How have I missed you? Oh my gosh.
It's pretty funny. So he really helped me understand how to heal. And one of the questions that he asked that was so powerful, one of the first questions when I got in his classroom, he said, what are you doing to contribute to your pain? And I was insulted by that question.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, I'm not doing anything but sitting here listening to you.
What do you mean? I play a role in this? Come on.
But just so you understand that mindset.
Yeah.
It's doing it to me. I'm not doing anything. That mindset, that is what causes the suffering. I'm just saying, but I didn't have anybody around me like Dr. Peter Prescott to help me shift that and see another perspective. Right. I could look in here, but without the influence of the mind and its judgments, and that, chronic pain brings negative, very, very intense negative mind into the situation.
Yes.
So, as you know, so he helped. So the thing is that in the question that he asked, he took me from victimhood to empowerment, because he opened up the possibility that I was actually doing something that was causing my own pain. And all of a sudden, I'm an empowered person. I didn't know the answer, but I knew that he completely shifted my trajectory there, and then we were off to the races.
Wow, powerful question.
Yeah, we're very powerful, and And the next thing he said was, don't judge the moment. And again, attitude. I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting here minding my own business. I'm not judging anything, right? Protection, right? What do we do?
Yes,
We're protecting, right? Defensive. That's
exactly.
okay. He had the room. I know he knew something I didn't. And about 3 sentences later, I realized he wasn't talking about me personally. He was talking about my pain. I
Mm,
was judging my pain as bad. And I had all my life. And so would everybody around me.
yeah,
And so instead of it just being information, I had judged as this bad thing that needed to be dealt with and fought against and all that. And that's not helpful. Right. So
right.
just those 2 things right there were game changers for me. The third thing that happened was he had a wellness practitioner there, a wellness consultant named John Newton of healthbeyondbelief.com, who brought in ancestral clearing, which is a modality that helps us release the burden of the imprints from the past. And that was very powerful. And I do that work now. I was so impressed with
That's
it.
awesome.
So there were
I
these 3 very pivotal pieces that completely shifted my it's like it's what buoyed the now I know how to access the inner healer. Like I knew it was in
right.
there. I just didn't know how to get to it.
Oh my
I was
gosh,
in the
this
way, right?
yes, that's so good. And I excuse me, when I ask you this question because I get all of this. Like this resonates with me so deeply and I practice the same thing. Like I went to a Synogens conference over the weekend. I had to drive myself 3 hours to get there. Since the neck injury, that's the furthest I've ever driven myself, and
Hmm.
so I was in a lot of pain when I got there. Just the stress of driving in that traffic, the stress of, all that I had to do to make it there for the first couple days, I was in a lot of pain. And so I was, but I was still interacting, I was still having a great time, and I just mentioned to someone like, that, I'm in a lot of pain, but I'm having a good time. And she said to me, "You're in a lot of pain right now?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "But you don't look like it." And I just briefly said to her, "It's because that's not what I'm focused on. That is not my focus. I'm
Mhm.
not exactly what you said. I'm not judging it as bad. I know it's there. It's there. It has a message for me, but it's not what I'm focused on. I'm focused on enjoying this moment, spending time with others, and my pain, I'm forcing it to take a back seat." And so I feel like that's what you're saying, but if people are like,
Yeah.
"I want to be able to do that. How do I do that?" What
Well,
what would you share with them?
I understand what you're saying, and
Yeah.
that would be like a stopgap measure. For me, pain is information. The body's trying to get a message through, as you said,
Yes.
and so um, it doesn't take a back seat. It has to be dealt with. And I mean, I understand that there are some times when we have to push through, I'm done with pushing through.
Yeah.
I'm like so good at pushing through. You just like
Right.
we're both Olympic athletes at that, right? So
Exactly. Yes.
that's not that. What does that do? That just puts more stress on the system. We have a stress response that when we're under threat, it goes in the on position until the threat's dealt with, and then it goes back to the off position. In chronic pain, it gets stuck in the on position, and I'm not going back there. I worked really hard to get my stress response to come back to normal, back into balance. And so, for instance, when I first got into a yoga class, especially Kundalini style
Mhm.
yoga, um, they say, and that's that's very intense. I teach a trauma informed version of Kundalini yoga, which is much gentler, but it's
Yeah.
completely different. Well, it's not completely different, but it's different. Um,
Yeah.
in a regular Kundalini yoga class, the teacher says, "Keep up." And because of who I am and my programming and my old patterns, when I hear somebody say "keep up," you know what I do? I try and go higher.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Right.
I feel like somebody just gave me a challenge and I need to anyway. So that I was just
Mhm.
like, no, because I knew, see, I can go right over the line into injury before I know it because of the chronic pain. Just, it's just the way I operate with pain. I can be injured and not know it. So my healing in the last 10 years has been, where's the line? Right. So when I
Yeah.
hear a yoga teacher say, keep up, I say, thank you very much. This is my practice. I'm meeting myself where I am, which is what we do in a trauma informed class. You would never hear me as a teacher in a trauma informed yoga class say, keep up. I just wouldn't do
Mm.
that because
Right.
we're, we're not putting any pressure anywhere. We're putting pressure. We're using the breath and our alignment to put pressure into the system in a certain way for a certain effect. But that kind of pressure is not mental particularly. It's
Right.
we're trying to find comfort in the body.
Yeah.
Trying to find We're trying to feel comfortable in our own skin again instead of having to I don't even want to be here. Like so it's completely opposite.
Right.
Yeah.
So these experiences with these doctors helped change your mindset around what pain is. And so
Yes.
how did that help you move forward?
Well, I walked into Dr. Peter Prescott's program with 40 years of chronic pain, and I walked out 52 days later with no pain.
Wow.
How do you explain
And it
that?
was it was basically just a mindset shift?
Well, no, he detoxed me off my
Oh,
medications, and
okay.
we did yoga, and we did ancestral clearing, and we did meditation, and we did qigong, and he had a holistic program. We did acupuncture, we did biofeedback. It was a holistic program, and it wasn't like Elizabeth So Special. He had a 94% success rate in that program,
Wow.
and they were all what the doctors called hickory nut cases, cases that other doctors couldn't crack around pain.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a holistic thing that he did, and it wasn't only the thing is that there's like a hierarchy to healing. Then and the mindset is kind of the last bit. The first part is the nervous system. If the stress response is stuck in the on position, you have to give it a signal that it's not that it's safe, because it's not safe. It's
Right.
when you're stressed out, you're like, nah, I'm protecting. I'm not safe here. So we have to do when that's where the breath work comes in.
Okay.
There's this
Okay.
beautiful connection between the brain and a long exhale. And when we do that long, like you did just before we got on, that long exhale tells the body, the nervous system, that it's safe, and you can begin to relax. And it was so cool when I first really got into really understood the power of the breath, because you know what? I was like, oh, my body actually remembers how to do this.
Yeah. It is really interesting because um, I had neck surgery. I have did a fusion C4 through C7, but C6 and 7 have never fused. Like it's been 9 years, they're still not fused. At any rate, I went to a brain center in Dallas for 2 weeks, not too long after that. And that is one of the things they taught me at the brain center was how to breathe correctly because I am such a shallow breather that they taught me how to breathe more deeply to use because our lungs, they have 4 quadrants. And
Mhm,
most of us breathe just in the upper 2 quadrants of our lungs.
mhm,
But there are 2 more quadrants way down deep in there that only deep breaths can access. And
mhm,
so there's so much power in learning to breathe correctly. I would just
mhm.
say that.
Absolutely, yeah. And most of the alveoli that in the lung, the most of them in those lower quadrants. So we're not using our lungs the way they're intended to if we're just doing the shallow breathing, which most of us do if we're not really taught, uh, you know, or we're athletes or something, and we're taught how to breathe because we're athletes.
Right, or musicians or yeah, that play a that
Well,
you have to blow
yeah,
in.
I was a singer when I was a girl, when I was a young girl, and I was taught to sing from the diaphragm, and then I got into Kundalini yoga, and I was taught to sing from the navel point, which is
Oh,
which is
wow.
quite a bit, yes, what 6 inches lower, maybe 6, 8 inches lower, and my voice was completely different.
Isn't that interesting? Oh, I love that. So this is a question that I ask every one of my guests. You have obviously been through some stuff, through some adversity. What would you say that adversity has taught you, or what have you learned from that experience? What hope has it given you? What have you learned from that?
So much, but really,
Yeah.
I think I said it earlier. I have to get out of my own way in order
Oh,
to be
yes.
able to access the inner healer. The greatest healer in our life is within. And
Yes.
my judgments about um, my condition, my story I'm making up about whatever it is, the victimhood, it doesn't serve. Right. So whatever you can do to empower yourself was very important. That was another issue that chronic pain, all those years of chronic pain, it really knocked my self-esteem down. So, it was kind of
Absolutely.
a trouble to get back up. Also,
Absolutely.
ask for help. Ask for help because it's out there. One of the problems that we have with this, when we've got this kind of like a disability of really any kind, is that we get let down a lot. We get, we're kind of used to, and we might not ask for help because we don't want to get disappointed again, and that's an error. So,
Yes.
and then the third thing when I say don't lose hope, it's easy to say, but I mean it. I know that as a fact in my bones that you have to, there's help out there.
Exactly. And that is something that has repeated in almost all of these interviews that I've done so far, is that we can't do this on our own. Yes, we have to look inside for the answers, but sometimes we can't carry out the things we need to carry out without getting help.
Mhm.
And it's exactly what you said. Like my book that I'm writing about, my memoir that's coming out in April, is called Finding My Hero Within.
Awesome.
Because yes, that is what I had to do to be able to make the changes that I made, was exactly what you said. Stop looking outside for people to come rescue you. No one's going to come rescue you. There's not a knight in shining armor that's going to come rescue you. That knight in shining armor is inside you. The person you're looking for is
Mhm.
in the mirror. And so I had to learn that and figure all of that out. And so that'll be including that in my book. But Taryn is here. Thank you so much for watching again, Taryn. And she says, that's right, we're not victims, we are survivors. Isn't that true?
That's right. That's right. That's right. Um, it's interesting that you're doing that with your book. Mine is The Way Through Chronic Pain: Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. It's a little different title, but it's
Yeah.
what are the things I use to get out of my own way to be able to access this inner healer. Because you can know that it's in there, but if you don't know how to if you don't know how to access it, then if in my case I was in my own way, and so was a lot of imprints from the past were in the way as well.
Right.
So that's just the tools. It's a nice adjunct to Dr. Prescott's book. The two go together pretty nicely.
I was going to ask you about that, because in his book it takes you through some of those things, but how is your book different than that?
Well, my book really. One of the things I noticed, because I've sat with thousands of chronic pain sufferers over the years, one of the things that I noticed is that we don't tell the truth. We're either quiet about what's going on, or we complain all the time, and neither of those things is accurate. And so I wrote this book. It's not a very big book, but it's very potent for doctors, nurses, family members, friends, caretakers and chronic pain sufferers, so that not just the tools that I used, but which are very powerful and very important, but also the voice, what the voice of a chronic pain sufferer really sounds like, so that they can actually
Oh,
understand this is what's happening.
oh, I
Because,
love that.
yeah, yeah,
It is so true that, like with me, I'm the quiet one. I just
me
don't
too.
really talk about it. I don't want to bring attention to it.
Mhm.
But it's there underlying at all times. Like I am in pain at all times. But most people tell me they would never know that because it's just not something I draw attention to. But I'm curious to see what you have to say in that book because I think I have buried it and practiced that so long that I don't really know, you know? Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand. Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand.
This I put up here on the screen for those of you listening. This is Elizabeth's website where you can check out what she does. Her book is there. It's https colon slash slash Elizabeth Elizabeth dash Kipp KIPP.com. And your book is there. Your what other services do you provide, Elizabeth?
Oh my goodness. I'm a stress management and historical trauma specialist, a trauma trained and yoga informed addiction recovery coach. We can get addicted to chronic pain as well as to substances, and
Mm.
ancestral clearing practitioner. So I do, and they're all under the auspices of stress management. They're all the different tools that I use to help people reclaim their healing power and unleash the healing power that's inside. Thank you so much, Taryn. I'm so glad for
Terrence,
listening.
yes, Terrence said, "Bless you, Elizabeth. Thank you for sharing." I'm with Taryn. I'm just like, this is amazing, and like I said, it resonates with me so deeply. I experience so many of the things that you talk about, and I always like to keep an open mind. Like I can always learn something from someone. I don't care who they are. I don't care what their position is. I can always learn something from someone. And you have taught me some things today, and I'm going to check out your book because I'm really curious about what you have in there, what it says.
Well, thank you
So
so much, and
good.
good luck with yours. I'm excited. I'd like to have you on maybe as a Facebook Live, closer to like maybe just before the release or just after, so we could get the word out about your book.
Absolutely.
That's something you'd be
Absolutely.
interested in.
Of course, I'm happy to help. Anything I can do to help people, I'm all about it.
Mm.
Absolutely. Let's see. Taryn says, I'd like to speak to y'all more on how to even publish a book. I've been saying since I was a teenager that I'd like to write a book about my life. Y'all, Taryn, that's so many people. So many people tell me that. And it's not as difficult as you think. I don't know, Elizabeth, if you went through a traditional publisher or did you self publish?
No, I self published. Yeah,
Yeah,
I got
I'm self publishing too.
I got an editor who had been in the business to do my edit to actually do a structural edit, and then I had a line editor, and I had somebody set the text. But yeah, I was self publishing.
Yeah.
I think the biggest challenge, Taryn, is for me, was that I needed to actually drop into my heart. I have the science background, so I have this, analytically trained mind. It doesn't always help. Yes, it can help you with the structure, but you need to drop into the heart and listen to what it says in your writing, and that'll be an epic book. So I encourage you.
Oh, me too. And it's so true what you said because when I started writing mine, like I have a master's degree, I was a consultant, I have very professional, and that's how I was writing because that's how I used to teach grammar. I was
Mhm.
writing in a very professional way, but it wasn't really like me telling my story. It was like me recounting what happened. And so I wrote quite a bit before I really found my voice, if
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Mhm.
And when I found it, it's like, oh my gosh, it just flows like,
Mhm.
this is it. This is it. I found my voice. Let's do this, and it's
Mhm.
just, but the emotion, that's what I want to not warn you, but make you aware of is that the emotion that comes with, especially if it's a personal story,
Mhm.
it can be very daunting. Like, I stopped writing at first after I started for a little bit because the emotion was so heavy. I was reliving it. I was reliving what I had gone through, and it was so heavy. But I have found a way to be able to do that in a way that doesn't feel so heavy. So I'll be happy to help you with that. And she has gone through human trafficking. Oh my gosh, childhood trauma, suicide survivor, addicted recovery, lost a husband, and more. Oh my gosh, Taryn, yes, you could help so many people. Taryn, you need to be on my podcast. You need to apply. Let me just talk about that here. For those of you who are interested in applying to be on the podcast, and I will just say up front, I'm already booked through June, so I have a waiting list, but at some point I will have more openings. But my website, there's a button on there to go to fill out the form. My website is www.getamyshelp.com. That's GETAMYSHELP.com. And I have a couple freebies for you if you will just go to getamyshelp.com/free, FREE. I have an emotion frequency chart that I created that I use with my story development coaching clients, where I help them. I have taken 100 emotions and put them into 10 different stages according to their vibrational frequency. And so I teach them how to move up the scale and live at a higher vibration so that their life really is much different. And so that chart is there. And then I also have 10 steps, 10 ways to show yourself self-love, 10 things that I practice and in order to help myself show myself self-love. So those are there too for you if you would like to get those for free. If you would like to email me about anything, contact me. My email is amy@getamyshelp.com. Lots of information there, but oh my gosh, I feel like it's so worth it. Like, we've covered so much today, and I just really feel like it's been very, very helpful for so many people. Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here. I cannot tell you enough how helpful this has been, not just for me, but for other people. And like I said, if you want to connect with Elizabeth or get her book, go to her website, and I'll put those in the show notes, that link. It's also in the description if you're watching live. And Elizabeth, is there anything else you'd like to say before we hop off here?
No, I think I gave the main points. The greatest healer in your life lives within you.
Yes.
And always ask for help, right? Ask for help.
Yeah.
If you need help getting to that, right? Accessing that. Yeah.
Right. Just like Taryn is doing with us right now. Like, she's asking us all these questions, and I'll end with this because this is so good. She said, "Y'all have me shaking over here. Such an emotional journey with a happy ending." Oh my gosh. I love that so much. Thank you, Taryn, for sharing with us and for watching. Thank all of you for being here, for watching, and for listening. And again, if you feel that it's worth sharing and worth a 5-star review, please do that so that we can share these messages of hope and resilience with more people. Okay, I think that's it for today. Thank you again for watching and listening to Polish the Mirror podcast. And I will be back next week with a new episode. Bye.